So today we will be talking about default method in interface. So till Java 7 we can have only abstract methods as a part of interfaces. We cannot write non-abstract method within the interface, right? From Java 8 we can also keep default methods as a part of interface, and those methods will be non-abstract methods, right? So अभी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि मुझे ये पता है कि इन इंटरफेस फ्रॉम जावा 8 इन इंटरफेस कैन हैव डिफॉल्ट मेथड्स एज वेल. सपोर्ट क्यों ऐड किया गया? What was the ideology behind it for rolling out the support of default methods for the interfaces? So let's try to understand it because it's a very important from the interview point of view. Mainly आपको इंटरव्यू में क्वेश्चन पूछेगा कि default methods का सपोर्ट इंटरफेस में क्यों ऐड किया गया है in Java 8, right? So let's try to understand it with the help of these points. Okay. So there are 3 points which we will be talking about. First one is the backward compatibility. Second one is the no redundant code, and third one is the enhanced flexibility, because of which the default method support has been added in Java 8 for the interfaces. So let's try to understand the first one, which is the backward compatibility. Okay. So without any further ado, let's go to IntelliJ and try to understand one scenario. Okay. So let's say this is my interface, okay, called printable interface. It is having a abstract method called print, okay, and then there is another class which is basically implementing this printable interface, which is a document printer class, right? So it is also overriding that abstract method. Okay, let's say this printable interface is going to be an evolving interface where we might add a few methods in the future. Okay, so let's say now if I want to add another method which will be printing a statement in the uppercase, right? So if I add another method similarly like public void print, okay, print in upper case, and then in argument we will have a string. So as soon as I wrote this method, right, print in uppercase in printable interface, you might be seeing one error here, right? One related problem. So the problem is that whatever the class which is implementing the printable interface, that particular interface has to override the new abstract method we just added in the printable interface, right, which is the print in uppercase. So here we don't have the backward compatibility with the abstract methods. So that is, if I replace this abstract method with the default method, okay, which has been introduced in Java 8, you can see the error is gone, which means that we can achieve the backward compatibility with the help of default methods. Okay, so in this case, whatever the classes which is implementing the printable interface does not need to override this print uppercase method, right? So we can add as many as default methods in a particular interface without any issues, and our interface will be backward compatible also. That's exactly what the first point is saying, that existing interface could be extended with new methods without forcing all implementation classes or all implementing classes to provide implementations, right? Now let's talk about the second point, which is no redundant code. Okay, so if you might have worked on the collections, let's say array list or linked list, and if you have processed over it, you might have used for each loop, right, to process a collection or to iterate over a collection, right? So even for each loop is also a default method, right? So what it says, that array list, hash set and other iterable implementations don't have to implement their own for each method. They inherit automatically from the iterable interface. Okay, so let's go back to IntelliJ. And so inside this for each method, a baseline implementation has been provided with the help of which we can iterate over all the classes which is implementing this iterable interface. Okay, so if you notice, we don't need to override this for each method inside the array list, or we don't need to override this for each method inside the hash set. Basically a baseline implementation has been provided in the iterable interface, and we are using same method for iterating over the collections. Here in a way, default method is helping us in writing less redundant code, right? So that is what exactly the second point is about. Now the last point is about the enhanced flexibility, whose definition is like interface could now provide concrete functionality that could serve as a baseline, reducing the need for utility classes and encouraging more reusable code, right? So you might find the second point and the third point quite similar, but there is a small difference. Okay, So let's go back to the first class what we have created earlier, okay, which was the printable interface. Okay. Now if I want to print something in the upper cases, okay, or if you want some piece of code which is common and which can be used by multiple classes, what we do, we generally write a utility for all those classes, right? And we export all those logic to the utility inside a method, correct? But in the similar way, if you see that let's say there are 10 classes which is particularly implementing a interface, and if you see that those 10 classes can potentially perform some kind of actions which is going to be common, and some baseline implementation for that particular action can be provided in that interface, then instead of writing a special utility, you can simply define a default method inside your interface, and you can provide a baseline implementation for it. So instead of writing different utility which will help us in printing my statement in the uppercase, what I have done, I have created a new default method inside the printable interface and added a baseline implementation, and whatever the classes which is going to implement this printable interface can actually make use of this print uppercase method. Okay, methods also helps in creating less number of utility classes by providing the baseline implementation within the interface. That is what exactly the third point is saying, that reducing the need for the utility classes and encouraging more usable code. That's all for this video.